Our first inductee in the 2016 class of the Missouri Press Association Newspaper Hall of Fame spent 55 years working in the newspaper industry, including instructing young minds as a professor at the University of Missouri School of Journalism, and later helping guide the Suburban Journals of St. Louis as editorial director.
I met Ed in the late 80s. I was a student at Missouri's journalism school. He was a professor then. Taught a couple of was a guest lecturer at a couple of my classes. He also worked at the Missourian, was the managing editor at the Missourian at the same time I was an intern there for a year.
A. Edward Heins' career also included stints with United Press International, the Des Moines Register and Tribune, where he was managing editor, Concord Publishing, where he was co-owner and published the Cape Girardeau Bulletin-Journal, and many other news outlets.
Ed, at the St. Louis American, Ed was the first person in the office every day, every single day. He wasn't even full-time, but he was the first person here every day. He came in, he got his job done. He was a mentor, one of my top two mentors of all time, I must say. I owe him a lot. But he was dedicated to the newspaper industry like nobody else.
After joining the School of Journalism's Columbia Missourian, Mr. Heins originally served as city editor, working with students in the newsroom. Eventually, he became the general manager and helped to create a weekly publication with total market coverage. The weekly full-size broadsheet attracted considerable advertising and helped subsidize the Missourian's operations.
He did a lot of writing, he did special sections, but he was very innovative on the advertising side. He did created a special section for us called Health Watch. He did all the writing, he managed the layout, and he sold all the ads for all of that. He did all of it himself. And I don't think many people realize his ad capabilities, his marketing capabilities. He was great. He was an all-around newspaper man, and that's what I've kind of based myself after Ed.
Family members said Mr. Heins loved the day-to-day journalism aspect of being a reporter and believed in watchdog journalism. He believed that journalism was a worthy endeavor to make sure that right and just things were done.
He's a professional. Again, I go back to hard worker. He was a gruff guy. He had a raspy voice. Talk like this, might have intimidated many people. But he garnered your respect immediately because you immediately saw that he had the knowledge, he had the innovation in him, and it showed immediately.
In 1989, Mr. Heins became the editorial director of the St. Louis Suburban Journals. After leaving the Suburban Journals after a buyout of that organization, Mr. Heins became a consultant for other newspapers, as well as writing for his own website, YoungSt.Louis.com, a local monthly news magazine for children ages 8 to 13.
Ed worked here at the St. Louis American. I worked closely with him from 1995 to about 1999. And after he left, I became chief operating officer, and I would not have become chief operating officer if it wasn't the knowledge I learned from Ed Heins.
He died in 2010 at the age of 79.